Hari Om. So we are on class 3 and the domain we are covering is universal outlook. It starts with the elixir of life. Yeah. Water. So what are the lessons objectives? It is for children to know that water is a blessing and we should treat it as such. Water resources are not to be exploited. This as an idea was conveyed yesterday also for those of you who were there. And for those of you who weren't there, just a quick refresher. Our culture is such that we look at everything that nature provides not as a resource. So we are not looking to exploit and get the most out of it. We are looking to see how we can work with it like we would work with our own family. The world is our family, as are the resources. So how do you want children to feel about this? Respect, because water is precious and it is available in limited quantities only. Anything that people consider precious is something that's available in limited quantities. Why is gold more precious than iron? Gold is more precious than iron because there is much less of gold available than there is of iron, right? So, and what do you want them to feel? You also want them to feel responsible. They have a role to play too. So that is something we need to keep emphasizing on. So what are the water bodies? Let's go again from small to big. In olden days, we had wells. Every household had a well somewhere in the compound, and that was the water source for us. Growing up, I had a well in my grandmother's house. We all lived in one big joint family, and the well was our source of water. We did not have water filters. We did not have water bubbles. We did not have all these fancy contraptions that we have now. Water was just water. We could open the tap and just gulp down a glass, and that refreshed us. And for the way we ran around and for the games we played, plenty of water was consumed. We never worried about, whether the water is clean, whether the water is unclean. Should I boil the water? Are there germs in it? If there were germs, we lived in peace with the germs. The germs lived in peace in the water. They were not visible. They never troubled us. Now, coming back to it, children, of course, the source of water they know in their homes is probably the water tank now. Everyone has access to a board. There is a sump, etc. And then you have these small ponds. Okay, a small pond, most areas have it. In Tamil, we call it a kutta. In your regional languages, you might have words that you use. And then slightly bigger than that, we have the lakes. Lakes people might have seen. You know, they've gone on expedition, they've gone on excursions, perhaps visited something in their state, in their city. Sometimes they also have facilities for boating, etc. in these lakes in their area. So children might have seen that. And then you have these salty seas. So what is the difference between the sea and an ocean? A sea is definitely smaller than an ocean. And the sea is usually a part or a section of the ocean. It is still quite vast. You probably will not be able to see the other end from where you are of the sea. You can still see the borders of the lakes and the ponds, but not so much with the sea, and definitely not with the ocean. The oceans are open, and they are the largest water bodies there are. That's for the static water. Okay, now moving on to flowing water bodies. You have small streams. I remember seeing streams when I was growing up. They used to water the fields. Okay, and it's not a very big deal. It's a very small thing, and pretty much everybody had seen it. We didn't pay any attention to it. You just leapt across and walked, and it wasn't much of a leap either. In time, we saw those streams vanish. We saw roads come up where streams were. And then we have tributaries. Tributaries are rivers that join larger rivers. So a tributary is also a river, but it joins a larger river and then finally goes and meets its destination, which is the sea. And then you have the rivers. All of us have seen rivers. Most children would have seen rivers. Yeah, you have the Ganga, you have the Yamuna, you have the Kaveri, you have the Godavari, Narmada, everywhere. There are several rivers that nourish our land. Okay. But despite all of this, so much water we've spoken about ponds, wells, lakes, seas, oceans. We spoke about so many rivers in India. There are several rivers like this across the world. Okay. And yet we say water is scarce. What are we talking about? Yeah. Why should water be scarce? There's so much of water available. 70% of the earth's land is covered with water. That's a staggering amount. And yet we say water is a precious resource that is not enough available to us. So let us put things in perspective, okay? Or let's see why it is so precious or why we call it so precious. Take a bucket of water, about 10 liters, assume, okay? Only 2.5% of that is available as fresh water. Can we drink water from the seas? No, we can't. Can we drink water from the oceans? No, we can't. We only drink fresh water, right? So only 2.5%, that means 250 ml. If you have a glass, you can show this to children for effect, because that puts things in perspective. Of the whole lot that's available, only this much is available as fresh water. The rest of it is salty water. We cannot use it. And of this 250 ml, 1%, okay, is accessible. That also, most of it goes as glaciers, snow-covered glaciers, right? We know Himalayas are full of snow. So many mountains across the world, all full of snow. That is also fresh water. From this 100 ml, all of that goes. So what is available for us? 0.7 ml. Okay, that's just more than 1 teaspoon. Less than 1.5 teaspoons, in fact. So from that bucket, this much is only available for consumption. So now do we see why it is precious and how precious is it? After all, without water, there is no life, right? For any of us. Can anybody survive without water? No. And how much is available for all of us put together? From the 10-liter bucket, only less than 1.5 teaspoons is available for us to drink. So, isn't water precious? And take 1 drop of water, okay? That 1 drop of water can support 1 billion forms of life. Amazing, right? That 1 drop of water, so many tiny creatures that are not visible to our eyes, that drop of water can support. Isn't it fantastic? Isn't this gift just so brilliant and fascinating? And the world is yours. So that is your resource. It is your precious resource to protect and to conserve, right? So what is going wrong with it? What do I have to protect it against? And how do I do it? Pollutants is the most common answer. We all use such strong detergents. Where does it go? All of it goes into the water, into the soil. Okay, let's say it goes into the soil and that percolates into the water, no? The strong detergents that we use. Where does it go? It ends up in our rivers, right? It ends up in our groundwater, and that is the water that we have to use. Okay, so we are damaging our own prospects for the future. And then what water is available, should we not use it responsibly? Given that we only have less than 1.5 teaspoons, should we not be careful with using it? And what is the other small thing that we can do? We can arrest leaks. A lot of water goes unutilized and gets completely wasted because we don't tend to that one tiny leak. One tiny leak in one tap in my house, how is that going to affect anybody? I'll give you a perspective, okay? There's someone who's done that for us as well. Is this audible? Show me a thumbs up if it is audible.
No, Amma. Not audible. It's not heard, Gayathri Ma.
Inima?
It's not, we can't hear.
You can't hear? Okay, so can you guide me through the process of getting it
The same thing, last time you went and clicked the share video, no?
Okay, so I'll come over here, share computer.
It's a massive waste.
Yeah, audible.
It was a trauma I had from my childhood. In 1 second, if 1 drop falls, then in 1 month, 1,000 liter of water goes down the drain. So 1,000 liter means what? 1,000 bottle of drinking water. It's a massive waste. It was a trauma I had from my childhood because I grew up on the pavement for water, my mother used to stand in the queue for couple of hours early in the morning, and she used to get couple of buckets of water. And I have seen fights for water. So those fights which I had seen in childhood, they stayed with me. One day I was with my friend sitting in his balcony, and I could hear somewhere some tap leaking. I told my friend, just please see somewhere some water is being wasted. He said, हाँ वो तो चलते रहता है. It is not serious for them. It's serious for me. So I have to find the solution. So I said, it is not that difficult. I should hire a plumber, go to all the friends' houses and correct their leaking faucets. That is the birth of Drop Dead Foundation idea. At that time, it was me and plumber. We were only two. When I completed one round with covering all the friends, I realized that it gives me little pleasure. I'm enjoying it. So why not continue it? If you decide to do something good for others, God becomes your fundraiser. You don't need an office. You don't need staff. You don't need big funding. This is the message I want to convey. That if individual, if he decides, he or she decides to do something good for the society, it's very easy. Normally people are afraid, अरे भैया कहाँ से हम करेंगे, हमारे पास तो ये नहीं है, हमारे पास टाइम नहीं. But with me, I tell them, look, I'm giving only couple of hours on Sundays. It's not my everyday's job. It's a one-man NGO. Anybody who is interested can do it. Anybody who wants to go ahead with this, he can go ahead. There is no copyright for my Drop Dead Foundation. So far, I have saved single-handedly 20 million liters of water, and if I can, you can.
Wasn't that electrifying? Yeah. Can you imagine the effect this will have on our children if we can pass this on to them? Am I audible? Show me a thumbs up if I am.
Yes, ma, heard.
Okay. So can you see the difference that we can make? Can you see the difference that every child can make if he just takes it upon himself to fix that one leak, to just close the tap a little tighter, to stop that water from being wasted? Okay, so this is what we saw just now. And to put things in perspective, each child is probably carrying a water bottle to school, right? About a liter, tentatively. That's what most children tend to carry. Imagine 1,000 such bottles, and all of that from one tap, from one leak in one tap, one drop going out per second. Okay, that is what they can change if the child decides to. So habits to develop, these are things that you will very easily be able to pass on to children. Close the tap when brushing your teeth. That's one thing that most people tend to overlook because they're still very sleepy-eyed. And then you can encourage them to have a bucket bath instead of a shower. Use eco-friendly cleaning products. In growing up, people used ash and sand to wash their vessels. Not much plastic was used. We all use the husk of the coconut. I'm not sure how feasible that is or how practical that is right now, because the child alone cannot make that change. But the child can definitely talk to their parents. And people world over are more open to accepting change right now. So the child can speak, but the child must be aware of what's wrong, right? The child must be aware that this detergent that's going in is coming back into their own water source ultimately. So it's our responsibility to inform the child of that. And then to keep your sewer system clean, not to clog it up with pollutants. And then you can encourage the child to go on cleanups, wetland cleanups. It can be a class excursion. That's something that people can consider. Assessment, of course, check for closed taps and cautious use of water. And how careful are they with the use of water? Having learned all this, has it made a difference to them, is something the teacher can assess. And then moving on to the next lesson, Nobel Prize and universal outlook again. the story behind the Nobel Prize. We all keep hearing of this every year, that someone won the Nobel Prize, this year so-and-so won, that year so-and-so won, so-and-so has been nominated for it, okay? And that is what you need to know. And we, at the end of the lesson, the child must know that the purpose of all learning is to help humanity. There's such a premium on personal success, on personal achievement, okay? And that's all about climbing over the other and reaching the top. But what is the purpose of that success? What is the purpose of any achievement if you do not have the world or anybody to share it with, right? And universal outlook is all about expanding to fit in the entire universe, to be a part of it. So the purpose of all learning is to help humanity. This is what we need to instill in the child. So what do you want the child to feel? Respect for the effort and dedication involved. Okay, because it doesn't happen overnight. We don't wake up overnight and nobody nominates a person, anybody at all, for the Nobel Prize. It is of value because of the effort, dedication, and the vision required. Okay, and towards the end of this lesson, if each child can be inspired to do something for the world, prize or no prize, every one of them might not win the Nobel Prize, and that's perfectly fine. But change is still change. Like we just saw with Abid Surti, what he did, he just went around closing leaks. And look at him say he saved 2 crore liters of water from being wasted. That's phenomenal, right? So these are the lesson objectives. And moving on to the story of Sir Alfred Nobel, he was born in Stockholm in Sweden. He knew several languages and he invented the dynamite in 1867. It's an amazing invention. It's used across, you want to break mountains, you want to cut across rocks, for everything, dynamite is used. Unfortunately, the flip side to it is, several times it is also misused by terrorists to blow up people, right? And that's such a misuse of a phenomenal discovery. The same thing is said about the AK-47 as well. The rifle was not invented to be handed over to terrorists to gun down people indiscriminately. It was meant to protect, but it ended up destroying. So what happened to Sir Alfred Nobel was, he was extremely unhappy about the destruction his invention was causing, and he decided he had to do something to change. Now, having figured out how dynamite works, there's no taking it back from the world. Okay, there's no taking it back or making it invisible. So what he decided, he would go ahead and institute awards to encourage people to use whatever they invent for the good of humanity. So it's not for the best scientific discovery, it's for an invention that is ultimately being used for the good of humanity across several fields, physics, be it chemistry, any field of choice. Okay, that is up to them. Where they want to focus, what they want to work towards is up to them. But ultimately, the invention should be for the good of humanity. So what did the awardees get? Money and a citation to honor them for their work. Okay, so awards are given out on the 10th of December every year. Okay, and now Sir Alfred Nobel is no longer remembered as the man who invented dynamite. He's remembered as the one who gives out the Nobel Peace Prize. So he changed his story. And we only remember, with the moment someone says Sir Alfred Nobel, we all talk only about the Nobel Prize. Okay, so he changed the ending to his story. Some of the awardees from India include Kailash Satyarthi in the field of humanity. He worked towards bringing children back, especially girls, rehabilitating them, victims of abuse. He worked towards rehabilitating them. You have Amartya Sen, you have Rabindranath Tagore, you have Sir C.V. Raman. Rabindranath Tagore in the field of literature, Sir C.V. Raman in the field of physics. And then what are the takeaways? The purpose of all endeavors is to help the world around us. Okay, it is impossible to gloat in one's own success unless you have anybody around you endorsing what you've done, right? Which is why anything we do, we come and share with others. We look for endorsement, right? Success of any undertaking is measured by the number of lives it touches. And that is the biggest takeaway, that you look at the number of lives you're able to touch. All of us can touch lives. All of us are equal amount of opportunities available to us. It is up to us to put our mind to it and to go ahead and reach out. So Gurudev's vision is maximum happiness to maximum people for the maximum amount of time. Okay, so that is what Gurudev insisted on. For a man of his stature, he could have had anything and he could have kept it all to himself. He got the greatest knowledge there is to get. And what did he do? He didn't go sit in a corner. He came out into the world and shared it with everybody. It is because of his benevolence and his generosity that several of us today live the way we do, have found the peace that we have found. We know the path we are walking on because he was generous enough to share it with us. Yeah. Staying on course and facing the obstacles. So it is not going to be an easy route. Okay, it's not going to be an easy path. More often than not, it is not. It doesn't come for the asking. Any great achievement is not just handed out like that. It takes effort, it takes dedication, and it's really worth it because at the end of it, the world benefits. So assessment, this can be very interesting. You can ask children to come up and deliver the acceptance speech. Imagine if they were to win the Nobel Peace Prize. How would they deliver their acceptance speech? Yeah. And then you can hand over a citation recognizing the best ideas and vision. So that's it for class 3. Moving on to class 4. Okay, so is this visible? Hari Om? Is this visible? Please show me a thumbs up if it is. A thumbs up if it's visible, please.
Yes, it is visible. It was visible. No problem.
Okay.
Right now, you'll have to share it again, please.
Yes, Swamiji. Yeah. So we'll go on to it. So now we come on to breath of life. Okay. We just saw water with class 3, and now we are moving on to air. Okay. So what is this thing about air? Where is air? What is the first thing we do when we are born? We breathe in, right? Life starts on this earth for us with that breath that we take in. And what is the last thing we do before we leave? We breathe out. And with that, we are out, right? It's the first thing and the last thing we pretty much do. So what do you want children to know? We want children to know that air is an essential life-giving element. Okay? There is more to air than meets the eye. Hey, I can't even see air. So what do you mean there is more to eye than meets the eye? We will get to that in a bit. Okay? We want children to feel amazed at the different aspects of air that we take for granted. What is there in air? Breathe in, breathe out. That is it. God provides, I consume. What more is there? Is there anything at all to learn from air? We will get to that. And what do you want them to do? Respect air and do their bit to stop pollution. Simple as that. The air that we breathe, air has no boundaries. Isn't that phenomenal? My country, neighboring country, countries several kilometers away, the other side of the world, air has no boundaries. Land, you draw lines over there. Can you draw lines in air and define this is it? Air observes experiences. It teaches us to observe experiences and not to get carried away. What do you mean by this? This is a bit confusing. There is a bit of breeze that flows through a rose garden. What does it do? It picks up the scent from there, right? Then it leaves the rose garden and goes over a garbage dump. What happens? The rose garden is gone. The garbage dump smell comes over there. It moves on from there and loses that also. Can we be like that? Some experiences are going to be fragrant in life, like the fragrance of the roses. Some experiences are not going to be so great. Like what? Like the garbage stench, right? Can we drop both and move on? Can we learn not to sink and be affected by what happens in life? Air can teach us that. Okay, take only what is required and don't hoard. Air teaches us this amazing experience. Let us all do this now. Okay, all of you sit straight, keep your spine straight. I want you to breathe in deep and not let out air. Breathe in. Let's see for how long you can do it. If you talk, I know you're letting out air. So you gave up, right? At one point. Huh? So too with everything that we get in life. All the good things we get in life are meant to share, to give around. Just because air is important and just because I have access to it, can I hoard? How much can I keep inside? I only will suffocate if I keep all the air inside of me, right? So take what is necessary and give out the rest. Don't have to hoard anything in life. God will provide enough and more. Okay? And then we move on to how do you do it? Regulate your breathing. No, let's start with that. Let's regulate what we consume first. Be it experience, be it air, no matter what, regulation is the key. Okay, pranayama. It's a very ancient science. We're all experts at it. We will have people teach us how to hold, breathe, hold, and let out, because it's very necessary to let out what you take in. And then encourage children to take up. Walking and cycling, kids love it. We might find it difficult at our age, but I suggest we should also try sometime. How many of you went to school cycling? How many of you cycled to school when you were in school? Not now, not now as teachers. As children, how many of you cycled? Nobody. Nobody over here has gone by cycle. I can see one or two reluctant hands coming up. Would you want to try that again now? Maybe you should, you know. Instead of getting on the bus, instead of getting into the car, instead of getting on the bike, take up cycling and walking. Encourage children also to take up, because that way we don't pollute this air that gives all of us life. Yeah, use the fan instead of the AC. How many of us do it at night? All of us want to turn on the AC now, right? We can't survive without the AC. Huh? Try using the fan, no? Those days we slept on the terrace. In summers, that is the only thing we did. Sleep on the terrace. If it is very hot inside, go outside and sleep. Air will nourish you any which ways. Rechargeable batteries. Yeah. So you don't end up polluting more and more. So these are very practical solutions on how to stop air pollution. Okay. What we send out doesn't end with us is the big perspective. Okay. I might be polluting. I might be putting something out there into the atmosphere today, but remember the same air goes elsewhere. So I am putting something over here that somebody else is going to be consuming. Flip side to it, somebody else is putting something out there that I will also end up consuming, right? So unless we collectively decide to do something about it, it is not going to work. All of us need to change. The world is ours. We need to protect it. Do you go around burning garbage inside your own house? No. Why? Because we find it difficult to breathe. The world is yours, no? So why would you burn garbage outside like that? Won't everybody else find it difficult to breathe? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, no? It's your family, right? So why would you put garbage out there into your own world? It is your world. Take ownership for it. Pollution hurts the world and all living creatures in it. Activities. This can actually be quite a fun class. Okay? You can ask children, just like I asked you to, you can ask them to hold their breath for as long as they can. And you can see who's able to do it the most. Pranayama literally means extension of life, by the way. Okay, so those of you who practice pranayama, good for you. Those of you who don't, please learn and start practicing, because your lifespan gets extended. You can see how many of them how many ohms can you say in one breath? In one breath. Like you play kabaddi, right? Kabaddi, 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 people go, right? Let's try and see how many ohms you can do in one breath. Children will have a lot of fun doing this. And like the other elements, wind is also worshipped. Wind, air is also worshipped across the world. Okay, Romans have worshipped it. The Nordic culture worships it. The Celtic culture worships it. Egyptians, Mesopotamian, Japanese. So we see that across the world, the 5 elements, everybody celebrates. Water is celebrated by everybody. Air is celebrated by everybody. Fire is celebrated by everybody. Right? And here we are thinking we are discovering things. We are discovering aspects that we are figuring out the world. Okay. So how will you assess this? See if the child relates to air as a resource. Okay. Or does he think he owns it? Does he own air? So when I own something, I'm going to take care of it. Right. Child should be able to take responsibility and do his bit towards keeping the air clean. This is something you will be able to notice in your day-to-day activities on how the child does. Okay, I'm very, very sorry. I will have to share screen again. Okay, and now we come to a very interesting aspect of universal outlook, waving high. Okay, we're talking about the flag. When we see the Indian flag, we salute. What are we saluting? Answers, please. You can put it on the chat box. What are we saluting? When I see the Indian flag, how many of us salute the Indian flag? Am I audible? Okay, so you're saluting the country, someone says. Someone says me. Freedom fighters, country, freedom. Yes, the martyrs. You're saluting your country, right? That's not a bit of cloth over there. That's an entire emotion. That's something several people have given their life for. That freedom that we all take so much for granted. Soldiers, country, absolutely. That freedom that we take for granted, that is what we are saluting. This earth that nourishes us, that feeds us, right? That is what we are saluting over here. Okay. So towards the end of this lesson, we want children to understand the idea behind a flag. Learn what commonly used flags represent. We want them to feel inspired and be proud of the Indian flag. Now, how possible is this? You must have heard of freedom fighters who laid their life down. Okay, down south, you have someone called Kodikatha Kumaran who gave up his life but wouldn't put the Indian flag down. He was a part of the Indian freedom struggle. That is the kind of emotion that the flag can invoke in us. You have to invoke the same emotion in the child. The same love, the same ownership for the country is what this flag represents. Do respect the sentiment behind the flag and honor the contribution of those who bring pride to the nation. Now, where do you think the first flag featured? All these things come up from somewhere, no? The first time they all appear is there, no? Where do you think the flag came? Where do you think the first mention of the flag is? The Ramayana. So the concept of the flag could very well have been Indian. From very far, the sentiment is visible, right? From very far, when someone puts out a flag, what they stand for and what they represent is visible, right? That's the purpose of a flag. Bharata's flag bore the Parijata tree. Okay, this is mentioned in the Ramayana, and that's the very first time we hear of a flag being mentioned at all. Okay, Ravana's son, Meghnath, his flag bore the symbol of a lion. All this you will find in your textbook and in your teacher's handbook. Okay, in battles, your flag represents what you stand for. Imagine if India is going out to wage a war. What flag do you think we'll carry and go? We'll carry the Indian flag only, right? Any country that goes to battle, you go out and represent your country at the Olympics. What flag will you take and go? If you're representing your country, you will take your flag and go. And at the end of it, when someone has won, what do? They put out the flag of that particular country, right? The honor goes to the entire nation. And this, how do we come to know? When we see the flag up there. Okay. In ancient days, when wars were fought, flags were planted on the cities that were captured. That is how they established their dominion and their victory. By doing what? By putting out the flag. So it gives us the idea of who's, and if someone's flag was put down, okay, it either meant that side was defeated or confusion for sure came up, because you don't know if that side is winning or losing after that, right? Victory versus defeat. And here you see the Indian flag. Every time we capture a peak, how do you tell them that you've captured this? You go and put out the flag over there, right? Now, is the national flag all there is? Is there more to it? No, no. Everybody has a flag. Everybody has something they want to communicate. This children will tell you more than you telling them. Okay. Pirates use what flag? The black flag, right? They want to terrorize people. So they use that. And how do you call truce after a fight? Truce, truce, peace, peace. You wave your white handkerchief, right? Fights between friends, fights between siblings sometimes. How do you pull truce? By waving a white flag. Okay. And interestingly, if you're on board a ship and someone is seriously ill, if there's a serious illness, okay, a contagious disease running through the members of that particular ship, they raise a yellow flag. I didn't know this. They raise a yellow flag, and that is flown halfway down. Okay, it is lowered when the infection is under control. So others don't come in and share the joy and the germs. So when there is, as a mark of respect, you can dip a flag and pull it back up. Like a tip of the hat, you can dip the flag and pull it back up. And in case of distress, if you want to show out that you are in distress, the national insignia is reversed. I didn't know there was so much to flags at all. Okay, and now we come to our pride, the Indian flag. All of you know, your children also know, that saffron stands for courage, white stands for peace, green stands for prosperity, and the blue chakra represents dharma. Yeah, it's a symbol of our national pride. And then for activity, your textbook has flags from various countries in the neighborhood. You can go through it. You can ask your children to try and identify them. And then you can ask children to make their own flag, a flag to represent themselves. And they also have to come and explain what exactly it means. Like we saw for Bharata, he had the Parijata tree, right? We just saw that Meghnad had the lion. It represented him. Those of you who are familiar with our gods, okay, you can ask the children to identify what animal or creature do you see on Lord Muruga's flag? If you know the answer, you can share. What animal do you see on Lord Muruga's flag? And yes, you see the rooster, right? After vanquishing the demon, one half of him became the peacock that he rides on, and the other became the rooster. That's over there. And how many of you can recall the chariot of Arjuna? You must have seen it in Bhagavad Gita. Everybody's seen it. Who's on that? Yes, I have an answer already. Hanuman is over there on that, right? So you can play this game with the children, go through it, figure out what gods carry, what flags, and what do they represent. It's something every child can relate to. And I think with that, we come to an end of this session. Assessment. How are you going to do it? We will all see what happens during Republic Day and Independence Day. After all these classes, if the flags are thrown on the floor, how much have we learned and how much have the children learned? How much have we managed to inspire the children? Right? So that's it. Thank you and Hari Om.